Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another one of our BBH 15 preseason podcast, going over the second chance stories of our BBH 15 contestants. Today, long awaited, very excited to talk about my good friend, Dan Alt, Cool Dad, joining me to talk about Dan's second chance. We have a panel of three tonight. First, let me bring in the person who ultimately got the upper hand on Dan himself. One third, one of his partners in crime from one of the best alliances in Big Brother Hometown's history. It's the winner of BBH 11, Justin. Hey, Justin, how are you?
I'm doing great. Nice to chat with you again, and I'm really excited to talk about Dan here. I'm thrilled that he's playing again.
Yes, we are. And also joining us tonight, she's the queen of spreadsheets. She's back once again. It's Miss KPoww. Hey, KPoww.
Hello. Happy to be talking about Dan tonight.
Yes, I will speak for myself in saying that we knew Dan was going to be here. Y'all knew. This is no surprise, no secret. Second chances. You should have immediately said, Dan Alt, Cool Dad. He needs his redemption. Justin, when I hit you up and asked you to do this, were you surprised or were you just kind of more so excited?
I figured that he would get the invite. Also, if you hear my dogs barking, I apologize. Hopefully they're going to be down in a second. I knew he would get the invite if there was a second chance this season, but A, it was exciting to hear that there was a second chance this season, and that B, he was not too busy with work or whatever was going on in his life, and that he could accept, because we had talked about in the past, like, would you want to play again? And he said he really wanted to play again, but there are times of the year when it would work for him and times when it wouldn't. So thrilled that it fell in a time that he can come back. I know he is going to be fully immersed in this game and ready to do even better than he did last time.
Yeah. KPoww, any thoughts?
I'm super excited that Dan is back. I am really interested to see how he changes up his game or doesn't change up his game, and how he interacts with all of the house guests that we have coming in this season. So I'm really excited to see what he brings to the season this time.
Yeah, I'm firstly very excited. Secondly, very scared, very concerned for my good friend. Watching, getting to know Dan over the course of season 14, and particularly as a production member, and just the care and the effort that he puts into the things that he's invested in, I know he's going to be invested in the season. My fear, and I think a lot of our conversation is going to be centered around tonight, is how does Dan overcome his target level or his threat level, because I think he's widely regarded as playing one of the best non-winning games in the history of our series. And if people have done their research, they're going to know that. So, Justin, you played almost the entire game with him, even to finale night. Like, give us like the overview of, what Dan brings as a player and how he navigated season 11. And then maybe we can talk after that about how is he going to have to navigate that threat.
Sure. So first thing about Dan is he's incredibly smart, very easy to talk to. He, like you said, he's really engaged in this. Like me, he does not do a lot of orgs. He, wanted to pick one that was going to be the one that he focused on, and he knew Josh a little bit, so he picked BBH, and he's thrilled that he did. And when he's talked to me about playing again, he's like, I'm not going to commit to it if I'm only going to be able to do like a half-assed job. If I'm going to play, I'm going to play. So that's why it needs to work with my life schedule. In terms of like what he brought to the table, I know he said this as well. He was not one that wanted to start a lot of alliances. He wanted to have people come to him and, kind of see who really wanted to play with him. And I was someone that reached out to him right away and wanted to play with him. And so we were kind of good from the jump. It was like, yeah, we're going to play together. We need to get someone from the other tribe, because we were in 3 groups, 3 tribes to start the season. So we ended up adding Gwen like a day later, and the 3 of us rolled together really tightly through to the end. I mean, I had other good allies in KPoww and Anthony, but throughout the game, my main number one was always Dan. We had talks outside of RBG that Gwen and I weren't getting that level of like deepness to it. So he really thinks about everything very well. Last time he didn't have as high of a threat level because he was a first-time player. So he really did try to lay low, and he didn't win any comps. Maybe he won 1 comp until jury phase, but he didn't win many. And then he just turned it on at jury phase because he is a complete comp threat, and he's a comp beast. I mean, he won, I think, 6 vetoes in a row or something like that. So, some people were criticizing RPG for sticking together to Final Three, but we didn't have a chance to cut Dan. I'm not sure we would have. We might have stuck with him.
Who was saying that? Who was saying that?
We didn't have a chance to cut him even if we wanted to. And I definitely would have given it some thought. But I think Dan's also a very loyal guy, and I think that's one thing that could help him this game is that even though he's a big threat level, he went to Final Three with his Final Three, even though he probably could have gone with some lesser players. So I'm sure it's going to be his pitch, like, be in my inner core. I'm going to ride with you to the end, even if it's not the best move for me. Because if he had cut me at Final Four or Final Five, maybe he would have had a better chance at winning that game by winning Final HOH.
Okay, Powell, what you had kind of a different experience, kind of being like left out of Dan's inner circle, playing some of the game against him. What's your opinion on,
I mean, one thing I will say about Dan is that even though he's such a well-rounded player, I think, he has those comp wins, he has that strategic mind, and he's really social. Like, he's great to talk to. He was one of the people that was, always asking me about my day and how things were going. And, we bonded about other things. And it's really hard to get Dan out. I wanted Dan out from like week 5. I don't know if I saw, the writing on the wall or whatever, but he was someone who was not in my end game plan, even though I wasn't in alliance with him. But Dan, I think, really finds ways to make sure that even if he does have a big threat level, he wins comps or he insulates himself socially. That if he finds his group and that group decides to be loyal, I think he can get further in the game and to a place where he could potentially win out again, or there are going to be other big.
Oh no! Okay, that was I think
in the game. It could be.
You cut out for a second, KPoww.
Yeah, you're good now though.
If the big threats band together, like, they could, do some damage and be together at the end game too. So there are, I think, a couple paths for him to get there. I'm nervous for him, but I do think that he is such a great player that if anybody can do it, I think he can do it.
Yeah, I think from just like when I think back about 11 and watching Dan from above, I remember he's so analytical about the moves and the intentional things that he's doing in the game. I remember him like so many times telling us, like, this is not the week for me to win this competition, and here's why. It's, I really would need, and he did get lucky to some capacity that, like, Lee and Blake and him and Chandler all end up winning. Some of his, like, close allies, KPoww, win a lot of the HOHs in the pre-jury phase, but, like, he was always very smart and particular about the moves that he made. He would come to his diary room chat and be like, all right, so today the goal is to do this. I really need to move myself in this position with this person so that this can happen eventually down the road. And I never can get to that level of, like, analysis. And so I'm always just very curious, and it worked out for him. You know what I mean? Like, it worked out for him in 11. I don't know against this field that will that kind of, like, intentionality work for him. I don't know. I'm curious to see. But he has every ability to be such a great player, and that's what makes him such a threat. Justin, what do you think he needs to do to manage his threat level going into season 15?
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to have to align with the right people. I don't know that there's a way that he can be, like, a complete non-threat, and I also don't know that he can come in and not win comps off the bat. So I think he's going to have to play a little bit of a different game. He's probably going to have to find himself in some sort of bigger group right away. We had that last year. I think it was like last season when we played reckless ops or something like that. I don't even remember. We had a 6-person alliance to begin with that me and Dan always talked about. Like, this is not a real alliance. Like, we will eventually build a real alliance. This is not it. KPoww was in that too. Yep. But like that gave us safety in numbers early in the game. He's going to need to find that again. But he's very smart about understanding like the Onion Alliance idea. So he would always, he maybe was doing this with other people too, but with me, he was always like, okay, we got our final 2. We got our final 3, and we got our final 6. And then beyond that, here are like the other layers that we have. So he knew that there were going to be multiple layers in the game, and he maneuvered that really well and always made me feel like I was his complete ride or die. And if I did ever waver about, wanting to go against him, I didn't waver in the confidence that he would side with me. Like, he made me feel very secure as his final 2, which is why part of me was like, I'm good going with the end to him, or at least I was willing to go to the very, very end with him until like his threat level was enormous. So that was like, I don't know exactly how he's going to lower that, but I do know that he's an adaptable, flexible player. We've just talked hypothetically about what he would do in a new season. I know he's going to bring some new things to the table. He realizes he can't play the same exact game. I think the biggest thing, he's not going to be able to completely diminish that threat level, so he's going to have to embrace it, align with, as KPoww mentioned, some of the other big threat levels, make sure they don't get kicked off early, and hopefully he can find a good ally or two and get his new Onion in place, and go from there.
And I do think that one advantage, I guess, that Dan has is being on production and potentially having watched some of the other players play already from the back end. I don't know if that's going to make him a target right away, but he's seen some of these people play. He's watched very closely an entire season play out. That was very different from 11, and seen, in some ways very different than 11, and saw different ways that the game plays out. So I think he has a level of, I want to say like insider information, but a level of different information than some of the other players have of actually watching a game happen real time, being on calls, reading people's DRs, to some of the people playing, and
we'll have to see if that helps or hurts him. Like, I've seen it both ways, where it's like, oh, here's this person who was on production for a game that I played. Let me run to them and gravitate towards them. And then I've seen the opposite, where it's like, oh my God, I'm scared shitless because this person knows my game so well. And like, they watched everything I did. Like, I can't trust them. I can't tell them. And you know what I mean? Like, they're going to just, I'm curious to see, like, I would imagine that Dan has a really good relationship with some of the people that he was on production for, but I don't know how they'll react to seeing him in the game. So go ahead, Justin.
That's only going to raise his threat level. Like, that's not a good thing to lower your threat levels being on production, because that is a red flag to play with someone, I think, who's on production because they know the game inside out. So that's just another hurdle he has to deal with.
Yeah. One thing I'm curious about from your guys' perspective, season 11 was very sequester heavy. Like, there was a lot of players who came from the sequester world. Season 15 will not be that. It will be a lot of people who are immersed in the org community. It's people that have interconnected and interpersonal relationships. How does Dan fit into that scope? Because he's not really an org person. Sequester really isn't a thing anymore. Dan is just kind of Big Brother hometowns. He's a gem in Big Brother hometowns. How does he adapt to that? Or what does he need to do to adapt to that sphere?
KPoww, do you want to take it first, or do you want me to go?
You can go if you have something to say.
Sure. I think that will be a challenge. I think we all acknowledge the sequester people that, we didn't really know each other. Some of us knew each other a little bit, but regardless, we knew of each other. There was like 8 or 9 of us in the game. It was about half the cast. And I think that kept us safe for the first few rounds. Like, no one wanted to pull that early shot at another sequester player. And the first few HOHs were all people from sequester. It was key. I think once you got into the game a few weeks, it wasn't as big a factor. And then it was about building those relationships. And he's amazing at that. And I think people get along with Dan. Maybe not every single person in this game is going to get along with Dan, but 90% of them will, because he's easy to get along with. So if anything, maybe his very early first few weeks are going to be different because he doesn't have that kind of built-in safety net that he had before. But I also think that he is going to be able to use that as a little bit of an advantage. I mean, a lot of times in a Big Brother game, the big target doesn't go out week 1 or week 2. The person that goes out is someone who is making mistakes, overplaying. Dan's too smart to do that type of stuff. So if he can avoid getting booted those early weeks, I think his chances of longevity are going to be strong because he can build those relationships just like he did in this game with Gwen. They didn't know each other at all beforehand, and they have a really great relationship in the game. He built a strong relationship with, Anthony and KPoww both kind of wanted him out, but they both also liked him. Like, he had a good relationship with them. He had great relationships with Macy, who he had never met before. So he can build those relationships. It gave us a bit of a safety net that he's not going to have this time around.
Yeah. I do think, I do think that there's a lot of people in the cast who would not target Dan week 1. I mean, he is a threat, but I think there is going to be some level potentially of sticking with people you might know. If certain people win HOH, like, I don't see them putting up Dan week 1. And
they might want to keep him. They might want to keep him as a shield because
Yeah.
he's going to be a shield for so many people in this game.
Someone will use him as a shield for sure. Hopefully lots of people, but someone will.
And I think somebody is going to pick him up. I think, he might be a threat, but I think he's proved kind of like loyalty, kind of like fun, integrity type stuff. So he's not seen as this like chaotic, messy player kind of threat. He's, analytical and smart and social and like willing to do what he says. So in that level, somebody wants that on their team, at least, in the beginning stages. And I think that beginning stage is enough for him to like really get in and work some magic.
He's also said too that he is considering trying really hard to win the first HOH to try and help get himself set up. Dan is so funny. We've had prod chat set up for about a month, before the game starts. And every morning he sends us his like thought of the day about Big Brother Hometowns 15 and like something that he wants to do or something he wants to try. And one of the things that stuck out to me that I thought was curious was, he said, I would like to potentially win the first HOH so that I can have people that have to come to me so that I can set myself up in the way that I want to set myself up. Do you think that that's a good idea or a bad idea?
I think it's a great idea, especially for his threat level. I think it's a really great idea. And I also think it used to be considered a bad thing to win the first HOH, but as we've seen in recent seasons, I don't know the numbers of like who won and everything did, but I know like the general trend is winning the first HOH is not a bad thing anymore. At least that's kind of what some of the podcasters that I follow are talking about strategically. And I do think that plays into something that I really wanted to point out about Dan is that he studies the game of Big Brother in a completely different way than he used to. When he played BBH 11, he had barely watched any Big Brother. I didn't even know until afterwards how little he had watched, but he had seen like parts of a couple seasons because I was always making references to him as like being the Kevin Martin of the season for the BB Can people because he was just comping his way to the end and he would be like, yeah, but he didn't know who Kevin Martin was. But since then, he was a Survivor guy, but now he's become like Big Brother and Survivor guy. I think he's gone back and watched old seasons. He would text me and be like, hey, I finally get your Kevin Martin reference now. I just watched his season. And we talked a lot during this season about what the cookout was doing and different strategies that people were trying. So like he is going into this game with such a higher level of BB knowledge than what he had before. I think that's going to be a big advantage. And I think that's probably why he knows that it hasn't been a bad thing in recent BB history, at least on the CBS show, to win that first HOH. I don't know how it is in BBH the game, but I think what we can really do is try to mimic, what they're doing on the CBS show, and hope that kind of translates into what we're doing here. So, long answer short, I think it's a good idea if he goes for it, sets himself up in the numbers, wins some trust and loyalty. I think that'd be smart.
So let's wrap up by with the question of what do you guys think Dan's second chance story will be? Because truthfully, and for the Survivor people out there who will get this reference, is he going to be Tony from season 34 or is he going to be Tony from season 40 is truly the conundrum that I find myself thinking about for Dan. What do you guys think?
I don't think he will be the Tony from 34. I think he is too smart to go out and make the type of early game moves that Tony did that really, took his threat level to like a whole new height. I think he's going to lay low and make some smart moves. So I think, maybe I'm a homer because I love Dan. I think he's going to do really well. I think there's two things here that he can like kind of do that. I'm sure he's going to want to get far again to prove that he's a really good player. Even if he doesn't win, he's going to want to get far. And then to me, I think it's a bigger issue of can he finish the job. It's probably going to come down to comps because I don't think, from final 6 on, people are going to want to take him. But if he can get to that mid-jury phase, he's really good at these comps. And if he had won one more comp than he won in BBH 11, he would be the winner. And maybe our roles would be reversed and I'd be playing and he'd be talking about me. Who knows?
I agree with Justin. I don't think that he's going to be the Tony from 34 in any way, shape, or form. I think he's too good for that and too not messy enough for that. He's gonna do what he has to do to survive as long as he can. And I think for Dan, his story is, I think, more about like proving to himself and to the BBH community that he can do it, that he is a good player. And I don't know if he's gonna win or how that's gonna play out, but I think I do see him getting far enough in the game to be able to like prove that and like hold on to that legacy for himself of like, yeah, I am a good player. Do I want him to win? Yes, I say that. I want everybody to win, apparently. But yeah, I think, he wants to prove that like his game, is replicable and he can continue to like have this, legend of Cool Dad Dan Alt.
Mm-hmm. One more thing I'll say, you two have the benefit of knowing the cast. I do not know anyone in the cast outside of Dan, so I cannot wait to see who is playing this season because I think there are two names that stand out to me that would be really tricky for Dan to play with. They're Lee and Anthony. If either one of those are playing, let alone both, I think that would be wild to watch. Maybe by the time this is shown to people, everyone will know the cast, but I'm just really interested to see who he's going to be playing alongside and how those prior relationships are going to make him have to navigate new obstacles.
I agree. Thank you guys. Well, firstly, thank you guys, Justin. It's so good to talk to you and see you, one of the winners of our series, talking some Big Brother hometowns. And who knows, maybe someday you'll be back playing a second time for, maybe a Winners at War season. Who knows?
You know where to find me.
Yes. Well, again, KPoww, lovely to have you once again for one of these. Justin, thank you for spending some time with us tonight. You've probably heard me say it. Join the Discord, hit up the VL, let us know your thoughts about this cast, buy some merch, subscribe to YouTube, get your fantasy picks in, all those crazy things that are happening. We'll see you back. And I just want to say, Dan, when you do watch this back, number one, to me, you don't have anything you have to prove. You're going to be great no matter what, and you are great no matter what. 2, you'll always be a cool dad to me. And on that note, goodbye, everybody.